Hi, I'm Alex Archbold. I've been buying and selling antiques since I was a kid. Over the years, generations of our family have gotten involved in the business, and I'll search just about anywhere I can to find hidden treasures both big and small. I never know what I'll turn up next. It's about exploring new places, seeing new sights, and having fun. And even though sometimes I get over my head, we try and make things a little better along the way. This is Curiosity Inc. Hi everyone, and welcome to today's episode. Well, today I'm gonna get crafty. It's the holiday season. Why, just look outside. There's snow, and it's December, and this is the time of year that you wanna have something special, some decorations, some things that make you feel happy. Now, we used to do a train around the Christmas tree pretty much every year, but the presents were getting in the way, and I ended up selling the train. Kind of regretted it, but I still kind of miss seeing a little thing go chug-a-chug all around a track. So I thought today I would build myself a train set, but it's not going to be any kind of train set. I'm going to build what's called a suitcase train set, where you try and fit an entire train set inside of a suitcase. Makes sense, right? So I've been collecting and buying suitcases, vintage suitcases, for a while. I usually keep them in the backs of my old cars and stuff, but I have one that I've been meaning to do something with, and I think this is the perfect opportunity to do this activity. So let me show you what it is and we'll get started. So here is the antique suitcase I've been hanging on to for a while. It's got this nice sort of rich vintage leather. It's got the old stenciling and lettering on it, the reinforced corners, the nice original handle. I think it's gonna be the perfect size. So I went ahead and we had some foam, and I cut down some foam to use as a base for this. And let me just show you. There we go. I wanna keep the inside looking like a trunk. Now, I'll probably end up mending that little bit of leather that's popped down there, but I'm gonna build this as this is gonna be the platform for my train set. So this little piece of foam here, I'm gonna try and do everything. The reason I wanted to use it's about a 3-inch piece of foam, is that I wanna have rivers, maybe a little lake, some scenery, and you can kind of build down, but I needed a flat surface to lay the track on. So we're gonna do that. And if I need to build anything up, like little hills and things around the corner, I've got this foam right here. So over the last little while, I've been acquiring bits and pieces to build this train set with, and this is the assortment of stuff that I'm gonna be working with today. Don't mind my craft table. I obviously paint and do stuff on it, so it's my kind of my junkie table that I do this kind of stuff on. But this is what I'm gonna be using to build the train set. I've got, first off, a Marklin German train set. Now this is itsy bitsy. Look at how big that is compared to my thumb. That's a working electric train. Now that's the size we want to use. Now this Marklin train set, I bought it online. It's brand new. I didn't want to mess around. I've actually owned a few Marklin train sets over the years, but I've not kept any. This is the first one I'm hanging on to, or that I'm going to be doing something with. We've got a few little bits of track sections. I maybe want to do a bit of siding coming off of it. The challenge I ran into was that the curves that come with the set are too big, and they wouldn't actually, the diameter was too big. So I had to go and buy these 145 millimeter curves, and look at this. They will fit in there. So that should give me a little bit of room to work to put my train set in there, and I can probably build some little hills and things around there, but I'm not gonna fuss with that too much. We've got some buildings that I need to put together that I picked up, little N scale or Z scale buildings, or Z scale, however you want to say it. So I've got these little buildings that need to be assembled. So that'll be probably the first thing I do. And then we've got the grasses and trees and, dry grass. And look at these itsy bitsy little trees here. And they're not cheap, $18 for some tiny little shrubbery. But, it will make the whole thing come together really well. So this is the assortment of stuff that is going to all get crammed and smeared and painted and glued inside of this suitcase, and we're gonna see how it's gonna turn out. But first things first, I've got to build some buildings. The reason why I'm doing the buildings first is because I have to come up with some sort of layout for this train set. I have a rough idea of what I want to do, more or less an oval with some siding, but I do need to get them assembled so I can kind of see where the little town's gonna go. I think there's a little farm in here. So the fun stuff gets to start first. So I'm gonna start tearing into these bit by bit, and we're gonna get them assembled. I'm gonna do some custom painting on them to try and make them look somewhat realistic, and we'll have an idea about where they can go on the train set. got my pile of buildings, and frankly, I don't remember exactly what I bought. And as I start dumping them out, I see, okay, we've got like little street scenes, like we've got old-fashioned storefronts, so this would be part of my downtown. They do come attached to these little trees or these little bits of plastic that have to very carefully be cut off before you can glue it together or paint it. So I've got this one more or less freed up. You can see little nubby stumps on there. I'm gonna have to sand those down and assemble this. Look how cute that is. Just like the world's smallest little building. So I'm gonna get these all trimmed off and figure out where the little storefront, where the windows go and all that good stuff, and see if we can't build ourselves a little downtown here, and see what else I bought too, because there's all sorts of little buildings, but this ought to be fun. I'm gonna get cracking. Okay, after much work, a lot of gluing and sticking my fingers together maybe 3 or 4 times, I did get my buildings put together. We've got a farm with a little barn right here. We've got a downtown, we've got a row house, a building under construction, a school, a train depot, and a little market. Oh, and an oil rig, of course. So all of this has to be assembled and put together to make the buildings of the train set. But before I do that, before I get them together, they need to be painted, because there's not a lot of see-through green buildings. They talk about living in glass houses, living in green, clear plastic structures, probably the same thing. Everybody would know your business. So we got to paint these up to look a little more authentic. So I've got my acrylic paints, and we're going to give this, get rid of some of the gloss. You can see how shiny that is. We're going to make them look a little bit more realistic. I'm not the Mozart of painting little structures, but I'm going to try and do a little bit of a number on these and make them look better. So next up for me is paint. Okay, I've got my little houses painted. Look, they're all black. Now you might be asking yourself, why did I paint these little buildings black? That's not the color they're going to be. I'm going to do something that's called, well, I'm going to try a dry brush technique after with the actual color. And the black just kind of goes in the grooves. So if there's little brick details or roof shingle details, that you get a little bit of shadow showing through. So that's just sort of a background color. So don't worry, they're not going to stay like that. Next step is on to the color. I have been very busy here painting. My fingers have gotten paint on them because there's tiny little cows and stuff I got to paint too. But I've got some of my, that's my boathouse. It's all painted up. There's the house that's under construction, little train station, and of course my little buildings here, my downtown buildings and my farmhouse. Anyway, they are as done as they're gonna be. They are tiny. I don't know if you can see how tiny that is, like the size of the tip of my finger. So trying to paint all the detail on there was a little tricky, but I think when it's all there with the grass and stuff, it should look good. So now I can move on to the train set platform itself. With my little houses painted up, I've decided to start figuring out what this layout's gonna be. I think I'm gonna have a little bit of siding coming off down here, where we'll have a little loading dock, and maybe these downtown buildings will back onto the train tracks. This is a town on the grow, so there's some buildings being constructed. We've got the schoolhouse off to the side there, so the kids can walk from either the residences or the houses that are being built over to there. Train station kind of over in this area. And I think generally just a big loop ought to do it. So this gives me a rough idea. Now this is a boathouse over here, which means this space can be turned into sort of a lake. I think we can do a lake in this area. That building looks absolutely massive compared to the others though, especially considering it's meant just to be a boathouse. Now they said it's the same scale, but I would think that a boathouse and dock wouldn't be that big, but maybe if you're a little person on there that is the scale and maybe it's just a massive boathouse. Either way, I've got it built now, and that's probably what we're gonna end up using for this layout, since it's all here and put together. It looks a little big to me, but that's okay. But we do have all these other nice little buildings ready to go. So I'm gonna start actually drawing and mapping where this track is gonna be, because I don't wanna start digging a lake out of this foam that's gonna be in the way of the train track. So time to get my handy dandy pen, which is right over here, and we'll just get drawing where things are gonna go, and I can take it upstairs and start working on it. Okay, I've chiseled out the shape that will be my lake. I'm gonna get this kind of cleaned up in here. Also, where did my little boathouse go? There it is. That is gonna have to sit in there, and it's gonna have to be in the water. So I don't wanna go too low. I can go a little bit more deeper in this area, but where this boathouse is gonna sit, roughly right there, when I paint and fill and get this all in, I don't want it sunk in too far. Now, you might be asking, well, that just looks like styrofoam. What are you gonna do to make that look like a lake? Well, don't worry, that's coming next. So the nice thing about using styrofoam to work with is that you can shape it and mold it with heat. So I'm going to be using, oh, I've also decided to fix that little broken spot of the case. I'm going to be using a little tiger torch, or a little, this isn't a tiger torch, this is a little butane benzomatic here. We're gonna try doing this and see if we can get some flame in there. Anyway, I'll show you what it does. It just really makes it look a little bit more natural. Anyway, I'll get this lit up and we'll show you. Okay, so I have to go kind of slow. You see how that's kind of melting? Looks like marshmallow fluff, but it sinks right in. So remember how I said I wanted that to start dropping down? Well, that's exactly what's happening. We can kind of soften those edges a little bit. We'll just gently work it. Give us a little bit of a shoreline here. There we go. Okay, I have what I hope is going to be my lake. I filled in some of the holes and given a bit of texture, some sandy looking texture here with just some drywall putty that should dry up nice and give me a base to paint on top of. I'm gonna let that dry. I'm gonna go wash my hands up before I become a statue. And I'm gonna do the same treatment to this I did with the houses. I'm gonna paint the whole thing dark or black so it can give a little definition and shadow as I add the other details. So I'm gonna go wash up and we'll get back to this. Now, although I'm gonna be putting grass and bushes and stuff pretty much all over this whole thing, I've actually painted it green as the base coat, or I did black on the buildings before I did that. I did sort of a topographical, it's called Congo green, just to give me, you know, so if it doesn't cover proper, that there's at least a earthy type color underneath. I have not done my lake yet. That's gonna be, you know, grays and browns and blues, and then I've got a little mountain here, but it's actually not dry yet, so I can't paint it. I've got to let this drywall mud that I put on there set up a little bit first. But we're gonna let that all dry all at once, and then hopefully later on today I can take it in and start painting out my lake and the mountains all kind of gray and bring it all together. It is looking more and more like the platform for a train playset every day. I shouldn't say playset. It's a model, a detailed model, but it's coming along nice. I have been busy mixing up some paints and trying to get the rocky shoreline leading to what I imagine is more the sandy, worn beach near the top of this lake. Getting that painted in. It's coming a long way from when I just had a lump of burnt styrofoam. The textures are looking good and rocky. I've added some actual rocks in here, and I'll probably give a little bit of highlights to get the coloring so it looks similar, but I have a little plan for some things I want to put at the bottom before the resin goes in. Also, I decided I'd do maybe a little creek at the bottom of this rocky ridge. So I'm going to continue painting and continue filling, and with any luck, we'll have room for some forests and some buildings and all kinds of fun stuff to go in this area. But I'm working fast so that the paint is still wet and I can kind of gradate or blend, as I'm doing right now, into the lighter colors. Let's see how it'll look. I've got my boulders made up. I've got the dark parts of the water. I've added a little bit of sort of mossy business around the rocks. I've got some white break for where the water is going to kind of rise up to. And I've got my boathouse in place, rested on the rocks. Seems like a good place to build a boathouse. And I even put a little sunken ship at the bottom because why not? something interesting to look at anyway. So we're going to let that dry, and then we're going to pour some clear epoxy in there, and we should have a little lake before too long. After this is all dry as well, then we'll start to get some the fun stuff done, which will be the grass and the other terrain and the houses in. Oh, it's going to start coming together real quick in the next little while here, but let's go get some clear epoxy and make a lake. Now that the paint is cured, it's time for me to pour the resin in oh so very carefully. I'm nervous, folks. I'm actually nervous doing this. I gotta pour it in. Just let it settle. I'm gonna fill it all the way up to the height that the water would be at for our own little lake here. Now this cloudiness should go away when it dries, I sure hope, because you won't be able to see my little sunken ship there. But we'll get that all filled up. We'll let this dry and see how it looks. Well, in full transparency, I actually had to drain my lake a little bit because you're only supposed to put this in like 1/8 or 1/2 inch at a time, and I filled the whole thing up. So I have to wait 24 hours for this to dry, and hopefully it'll turn crystal clear because I couldn't see my little sunken ship as it was. So I have to do layer by layer by layer until it's done. So in the meantime, I've mixed up some of the contact cement. Oh, not that. The scenic cement, that stuff. And we're gonna brush it on and start getting some of the landscape material down in the areas where I know there's not gonna be any buildings. So gotta keep myself busy while I make mistakes in other areas. But this should go on relatively smooth, I hope. And I guess we'll see. I'm just basically gonna get this glue on here and sprinkle some of the scenic landscape. I think this is gonna be like my arid area, the area of this that is a little drier, maybe, that they're not habitating. It's not habitable, is my thought process, which is why they built the town on the other side of the lake. So we're gonna get a nice liberal amount of glue on there, and then we'll get a little sprinkle shaker out and we'll get some of that happening as well. Okay, while that sets up, I'm gonna start working on some of my other landscaping, the grass, figure out where the train track's gonna go, and start kind of tearing into the rest of it. But I have to be careful not to bump it. But it is time for me to start doing the stuff I've been looking forward to doing, and that's the landscaping in the town, so let's get to it. That's still drying over there. We are getting the track all put together, and I can see that I'm gonna have to change up the curve, but it looks like there's gonna be no issue with me laying the track right on top of the terrain here, so I'm not gonna really stress too much about that. I'm going to mark off where the buildings are gonna go again, because I have to make some roads and do some landscaping. What fun. So I'm gonna get my little building set back up again. We're gonna draw some roads, and then I'm gonna start laying some pavement, or some gravel in this case. Okie dokie. Well, this gives an idea. I've kind of drawn in where the gravelly bits are gonna go and where the grass is gonna go. Now, I can take all this stuff off again and the track and start gluing down with the adhesive, the special adhesive I have, gluing down all the new grass and the pavement and stuff. So, and that's really the fun stuff in my mind. So we take our grass and we just sprinkle it ever so lightly on the glue that I've put down when I didn't have the camera on, because I forgot to film myself, but I just brushed the glue on. It wasn't that big of a deal. And we kind of go over all these little areas until it basically gets all covered. So I'm gonna keep doing that until all these white glue spots are covered in grass, and then I can do the gravelly bit where the town's gonna go. Okay, here's the progress report. I've got my little mountain stream. I've got my sunken ship at the bottom drying there, and I can see it's slowly getting a little clear. I'll add more tomorrow. I've got the road works, or the gravel road for the town, and the grass laid that the train track can go on top of. So we'll let all this set up and then we'll get back at it again tomorrow. But I feel like that's a pretty good start right there. Okay, I've got most of my little downtown structures in place. My construction site, my schoolhouse. Well, heck, it's a budding little village. I've added some trees, which I'm gonna paint the bases so they're not brown or off color. I'm gonna try and get some green paint on there so it blends in a little better, but I'll be darned if that isn't looking like a full-on little train set. Before I get the train set up, there's one little thing I want to add. I've been saving all these turn of the century, these are all cards, like business cards from Portland, Oregon. and the graphics on them are fantastic. I've got a whole bunch. They've been glued on to stuff before, and I think I can do a little decoration on the inside of that trunk to really finish it off. So there we have it. I was able to fit an entire train set layout inside of this trunk. And it's not terribly big. I mean, look, that's the size of my hand there. It's just a normal size suitcase. So this has got to be one of the tiniest little trains I've ever seen in my life, but gosh, it goes around there nice. We've got the village, we've got the buildings under construction, the little marketplace right there where I guess you could go and get some fresh produce. We've got the lake, which is still somewhat setting up, but it's there. And we've got the train going around. Of course, all of my vintage, over 100-year-old cards are on there just for decor, and I think that just gives it a really nice look. So a little something to have by the tree that doesn't take up a lot of space and very easy to store when it's not the holiday season. But this was a fun little project, I have to say. I really enjoyed putting it together. Well, there it is. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Had a lot of fun putting this little train set together. It turned out super cool. I'm glad I already had the trunk. I had the cards for the decoration. All I had to do was pick up the train set and some foam and decor, and we have ourselves a train set. So if you get bored and decide to build one of these, it didn't take that long. The longest part has been waiting for the water to dry. Which sounds, you know, worse than waiting for paint to dry. But it was a really good time, and I'm having a great time just watching this go around. I could do this for hours. But guys, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful holiday, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't done that too. So we'll see you soon, and as always, bye for now. Bye everybody.